year is 1961, and a group of Scottsdale businessmen gathered to discuss how to make Scottsdale a tourism hub. Thinking America's game, baseball is the way to go. It started off with the Baltimore Orioles, then went to the Boston Red Sox, Oakland A's, and well, you get the picture from there. The Scottsdale Charros grew from about a dozen men dedicated to making Scottsdale a better place to one of the largest giving organizations in our community. From spring training to the famous ride and their recognition to outstanding education, the Charros know what it means to give back. Here to teach me more about this organization is the Charros Executive Director, Dennis Robbins. Dennis, welcome to the table. Thank you for coming. And I really just want to start kind of basic. I'll get to the hard questions later for you. But what does it mean to be a Charro for you, and why was this organization so important for you to be a part of?
Well, it means to give back, and it means to be embedded and involved in the community. So, interestingly, my dad was a Charro before me,
Okay.
And a lot of his friends were, and so, and it's evolved tremendously over the years. But it really is just an opportunity to give back to a community that's been so important and special and impactful on our families' lives and our lives, and so. It just always seemed to be part of the equation, part of growing up, and part of being in the Scottsdale community. So, yeah, it's something that I've loved to do over the years, and now I'm fortunate to work full time in
Yeah.
it, and so it's fabulous.
Did you always know that you're going to be a Charro? I mean, if your dad was one, I mean, was it like, yeah, that's what I want to do too eventually?
I don't know if I always knew that I would be, because there are some legacies in there. There's some, second generation, and we'll probably get to third generation. But there's also some that, didn't want to do that. Their dads were Charles and they didn't want to be involved. So it just depends on the person. It really
Yeah.
does. So, but yeah, I mean, I love the equestrian side of it, the Western heritage side of it as well, and baseball is what really brings in the revenue and allows us to give back. But I really like the heritage side and the fact that Scottsdale was a farming and ranching community, and we still look at those roots and try and make that a priority, and we don't lose that heritage in Scottsdale.
Do you see yourself as like the Scottsdale Cowboys of the area?
I think so. I mean, I think we started, interestingly, during the pandemic when baseball got affected by COVID-19, and so we were looking for another fundraising opportunity, and so we did a golf tournament. Golf tournaments, you could still play golf, people are outside, and so we Charroized the golf tournament where we had people on horseback on the course, and
Cool.
we had a country western singer there, and we had horseshoes at every made into S&C for Scottsdale Charros at every tee box.
Fun.
We had people there all dressed cowboy, and so we really tried to make it unique, which we did. And so I think that's kind of a cool part of who we are and what we're about.
Well, I want to go back a little bit what you said earlier. Baseball's kind of where this started from. So it really is. Spring baseball and the Charros mean as much as the baseball teams that come here. I mean, you all brought spring training here and helped found the Cactus League. Why do you think that the founding fathers chose baseball as the way to really grow this city and make Scottsdale on the map?
So even before the Charros, so back in the mid-'50s, there was a group of business people came together and formed the Scottsdale Baseball Club, and they were looking to find some teams and a location and to kind of get involved in this new thing that was happening. And interestingly, the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, who you referenced earlier, was in town playing golf, and he walked into the Pink Pony, which was a landmark of a restaurant in downtown Scottsdale, and some of the guys who were on this baseball club saw him walk in, and they said, hey, whoever his name was, I can't recall who owned the team at the time, but they said, hey, you should bring the Orioles to Scottsdale for spring training. And he said, well, build me a stadium and I will. Okay. And so that's what they did.
It was like an old wooden stadium, right?
It was. So they carved a section out of a farm, just like a field, right where it is today. So right there at the corner of Osborne and Drinkwater Boulevard was somebody's farm. If you look back at the old photos, the stadium was built and all other corners were farm.
Is this where the Field of Dreams story came from, maybe?
I mean, it looks like that,
It
exactly,
does.
right? And so they went out and sold seat licenses for like $500 a piece. They raised, I don't know, $70,000.
Wow.
And they built a $100,000 stadium, and true to their word, they came back the next year and they played.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, look what just an idea and dedication did to the city. It changed it forever.
Right, and so we've had 5 teams since then, and the first 4, well, actually all 5 played in that old wooden stadium, And then when the Giants got here in '82, they played in it for a number of years, and it was really, it had seen its best days. Yeah, it didn't smell very good apparently. So the Charros, they formed a committee, as communities do, to study it, and they said, okay, yeah, we need a new stadium. And so we were having a big bond election in 1989 for other city services, other infrastructure needs, and they put that single question on the ballot for the citizens to vote on. Should we tax ourselves to build our own stadium? And the Charros went out and politicked for that and promoted it, and it passed, thankfully. Not every question on that ballot passed that year, so there were some controversial items on it. Anyway, so they raised, I think it was $8.9 million.
Holy moly.
To build that stadium, and it opened in '92.
Wow.
So you go from $100,000 stadium to a $9 million stadium. And then so '92 it opened, and then in 2005 they put another $25 million, and then last year 2 years ago we put another $50 million in. So it's as everything has, it's gotten more expensive, but it's a beautiful space.
And it really brings in people from all over, which is just so fun to see and be around, and really just changes the city's feeling around here. And I missed it last year, so I'm so excited. Hopefully everything comes back this year.
Yeah, it is a unique location. It's a great, no other city has a ballpark in their downtown.
Right.
And so that is really unique. And obviously with Scottsdale's restaurants and shopping, it's a unique experience.
Yeah. Well, the story goes that after spring training in 1962, that a few of the Charros decided to relax. They had a crazy year trying to get the Orioles here and stuff. To celebrate their accomplishments, they took a ride up into McDowell Mountains. And this is what you're talking about, the equestrian side of what the Charros do. The ride still happens today. This tradition is so creative and amazing to me. I just love it. I love seeing all you on your horseback riding through, the police escort and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit about this and how this is still such a huge part of the Charros and who you are and your foundation.
Right. So every year we have a Charro ride, and it's up to around 200 people.
Wow.
And so it takes a lot of effort to plan. We spend all summer riding trails and figuring out where everything's going to be. And
is it a different route every year?
And it's a different location every year. So this last year we were in Flagstaff. The year before, 2 years ago we canceled it, but this last year we were in Flagstaff, and then the previous ride we were down in Tombstone. So we kind of move all over the state. So it's a really cool thing because we get to know a lot of the ranchers all around the state, and so that industry we promote as well, that lifestyle and people who feed us basically. And so we've developed great relationships, and we try not to go back to the same place twice. So we have to recreate everything from scratch every year.
Do you all camp out when you do these 4-day
Yeah,
rides?
we have a base location where we have a tent, and we have all the infrastructure built in, but we ride out from there and ride back every day. Yeah.
That's really cool, and everyone brings their own horses and stuff like that.
Well, this day and age there's probably 25 or 30 of the 200 that own their own horses, and the rest we have an outfitter that brings in 150 horses. So it's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Where are you going this year?
We are going to the Prescott area this year.
It'll be beautiful. How many miles do y'all really get in?
It depends on the day. So we ride between 5 and 10 miles a day. We have a gymkhana on one of the days, just horse games kind of thing. And
Fine.
So, yeah, we do a bunch of different things. So, but we try and get out and ride as far and as long as possible.
Well, the original story goes that the ladies were waiting for their men at the end of the ride. Does that still happen? You still have all the ladies wait for you?
They do. They come in. Yeah, they come into camp, and we have a big party with them. And so, yeah, it's fun. It's a fun weekend at the end.
About how many members do you have in the organization?
So we have 45 active members. You're active for 7 years. So when you get into the group, you have to participate in everything we do for the first 7 years, and then you become a life member.
Okay.
And once you're a life member, you can be as involved as you want or not as involved. It just depends on what you want to do. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 45 active members, and we have about 175 life members.
Okay, very cool. Welcome back. I'm sitting here with Executive Director of the Charros, Dennis Robbins. Dennis, we were talking about the ride that y'all are going to do this year and everything the Charros does in the organization starting. You all have raised a lot of money and you give so much back to Scottsdale. Being a mom of 2 young kids, education is so incredibly important to me right now. Tell me what the Charros does. Tell me about your fundraising for this. Tell me about how you do the Teacher of the Year at every school in Scottsdale. Wow.
Yeah, so, back to the spring training, we really were just boots on the ground labor, and we weren't a fundraising organization back in the day. So
Okay.
the first 30 years, we really didn't raise much money. But once we started figuring out this baseball thing and we could make money from it and we could give back to the community, we said, well, what are we going to do with the money? And we gave to a few charities, and then we thought, well, we need to honor some students in the Scottsdale schools. And so they honored a couple high school students. And so that turned into an education banquet, and we've done that for 34 straight years.
Wow.
So now it's turned into, we have a Teacher of the Year from every school. So
Love it.
So there's 30 schools. Teachers don't get enough recognition,
No, they
right?
do
So
not.
they bring their spouse, their principal comes, and we assign a Charo to every school in Scottsdale. And so we have that link and find out the needs of the school. Every school's different. They're armed with money to give to the school to help out in small ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a grant process where you apply for grants, and those go for things like robotics and books and supplies and furniture. I mean, other stuff that the school doesn't normally fundraise or fund. We've done a future teacher scholarship for the past 20 years where we give a scholarship to 2 in-state students who want to be teachers. So we have 8 kids every year, so 2 freshmen, sophomore, junior, senior, who are in college becoming teachers. And so we've graduated 40 kids over the last 20 years who've been teachers. A lot of them come back to Scottsdale.
Of course they do,
right?
yeah.
We have a couple scholarships for Scottsdale Community College. So about half the money that we raise every year goes back into the education of Scottsdale students.
That's so important. So important. It's
Yeah.
our next generation.
Right.
Without them, we can't survive. I love that. My son's kindergarten teacher won last year. I'm a huge fan of her at our school, so congratulations to all the teachers out there, because like you said, they don't get enough recognition,
No.
especially these past crazy years.
Yep.
I'm very excited about this next thing. The Parada del Sol is back. When I moved here, Dennis, a couple years ago, I was learning about it, so I didn't get to go in 2020. 2021 was canceled. Please tell me how much fun we are going to have this year, because it is coming up. So tell me all about it. What can we expect? What do we need to make sure to go see and everything?
Right, so it's probably the longest running event in Scottsdale history. It started right about when Scottsdale became a city in 51.
Wow.
And it was called the Sunshine Festival back then.
Okay.
And,
Makes sense.
Right? And it turned into the Parada del Sol, which is Parade of the Sun, right? And so the Charros have ridden in it for 55 of those years as a mounted horseback group. But it's just really a way to bring the community together, to celebrate downtown, to promote the restaurants and shopping into downtown as well, and just have a good time. And it's very family oriented. So it's on February 5th.
Okay.
Starts at 10 a.m. It lasts for about 2 hours, and there are about 125 entries. And then afterwards, there's the Trails End Festival. So right down there in Old Town, we'll have kid games and horses and bands. There's 4 bands, stages. There's 4 different stages that'll be playing.
Fun. I love to dance, so I'm
Right.
ready.
Lots of good music.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good family time in Scottsdale.
And the parade route's how long?
The parade route is less than a mile, actually. So it starts at on Scottsdale Road, just south of Camelback, right there, and it goes south, and then it wraps around, does kind of a big loop, and ends up right in downtown at Indian School and Brown.
Okay.
So it goes by the Museum of the West, and we've changed the route a couple years ago to kind of be the same as the old route. We used to go straight down Scottsdale Road like 2 to 3 miles, and part of Scottsdale Road gets too wide and you get too far away from everything. So we've kept it very intimate, and you ride right by the people who are viewing it. So it'll be 25 to 30,000 people down there.
I was about to ask,
it's big.
Are you expecting it to be big this year,
Oh,
especially since last year? Any special things you're doing this year that are coming back or we haven't seen because we missed it last year?
Not really. We have a lot of really good. The horses have come back. We're really dependent on the horse groups and the bands. The high school bands are super important because that brings the families, and people love to see the bands.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've really selected our date primarily so that we can make sure the bands are there, which is really fun.
I love seeing that. And again,
Yeah.
it's bringing the kids back and the education into it, which is just so important. You really do encompass like the whole community aspect of it, and I love that.
Yeah.
I have let me ask that again. What do you think makes the Charros stand out here in the community?
Well, I think our longevity, for sure, being around as long as we have a good handle on what the community is about. We really try and stay in our lane. You know, we've had a lot of people over the years try to pull us into political things, and which is just not good, right?
I'm with you.
Right? I mean, politics is important, and people need to stay abreast of what's going on. But when we're just a group that gives back, and we have events that we produce that we want people to come to so that we can raise money and give it back to the community, I think our events are popular. Being a part of spring training and the parade and education are all things that the community values.
Right.
And so I think that has allowed us to continue to do what we do and not really go too off course.
I like that. Yeah. All right, my last two questions are going to be hard ones. I saved the hardest for last. So, being that the Charros, help bring spring training here and stuff like that, who is your favorite baseball team? Who do you cheer for?
I know, right? It's hard.
It is.
It is. Especially because the Diamondbacks are only 20 years old.
Right.
And so before the Diamondbacks, there was spring training.
Yeah.
So, when the Giants are in town, it's definitely the Giants.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm a hometown fan. Okay. I still like the Diamondbacks. I do.
I personally was born and raised in Atlanta, so congratulations to my Atlanta Braves, national champions. And I'm an 80s baby, so the 90s Braves is like what I knew, So I'm stuck to my Braves, but I too, like you said, I cheer for the hometown team. I love Scottsdale, so I will cheer for the Diamondbacks. You, Dennis, are a native of Scottsdale, a rarity. I've probably met a half a dozen of you at this point, which I think is a lot, honestly. What is your favorite Scottsdale vibe?
Favorite Scottsdale vibe? Well, I think one of the things growing up here and watching us grow tremendously, population over the years, and seeing the desert being gobbled up by homes and businesses, I think one of the most unique parts of Scottsdale is our preserve.
Yes.
Right? And that we've set aside over 30,000 acres in perpetuity for trails and just to be left alone. And so I think that's super unique. And it's really hard to find something like that in your backyard. Mm-hmm. And so I think our citizens had the foresight really to understand that how important that is and tax themselves to pay for that. And so I think we'll treasure that for decades and really don't understand how important it is. You understand how important it is the longer you live here and the more you see things grow, that will stay the same. That doesn't change, and it'll be, it's a treasure.
That's the first time I've gotten that answer, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm so lucky to back up to the preserve, and I don't take it for granted. I will just sit outside and stare at those mountains, and it's gorgeous. It really is it makes me speechless. It's breathtaking. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining me at the table today, teaching me a little bit about the Charros. I'm so excited to have spring practice back. I'm really excited about the Parada del Sol coming up. I will see you out there having fun. You'll probably see me dancing with my kids. That's fine. But thank you so much. Anything else you want to add before we have to say goodbye?
No, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, and it was a joy.